Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Your Company Health podcast where we highlight the success stories of business owners and professionals. I'm Andre Wright, your host, owner of the Wright Consult Digital Marketing. And this is our first episode in season 2. And I'm excited to talk with our guests. Today we have on the show Ted Ryoski of Sandler Training. Ted, how are you?
Andre, doing great. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. So to get things going, I want you to tell our audience about your background.
Yeah, so I'm probably much like any other person that found themselves in sales. I got here by accident. When I got out of school, this is a while ago, market was pretty rocky, and I had a marketing degree, and it was tough to find a job. I ended up back at the company I was working for during school. Summer and winter breaks. And about 6 months after I started there, I got my first opportunity in sales. They literally handed me the keys to a car and told me to go out there and bring some sales in. So that's how I got my career started in sales. And 30 years later, here I am.
We're all salespeople, right? And to really do it effectively, you have to have a level of passion or it's something you have to love to be doing it for even as long as you are doing it. So I want you to tell our audience, was there something that inspired you to keep going on even after you started?
I think it's like you mentioned, we're all in sales. To me, there's no better feeling than landing that account. That feeling of bringing somebody in, something that is bringing a winning solution to them, and bringing a new account in. There's no better feeling than that. And I think the other piece of that, so part of my history, and talk just about my beginning, but over the course of 30 years, I started off in the Northeast, met my wife at the turn of the century, and the two of us moved out to Arizona, spent some years out there, North Carolina for a couple of years, and ended up here in Atlanta just about 9 years ago. So over the course of time, 7 different companies, 6 different industries. Had the opportunity to help people, other salespeople, get successful, so led a team. And that was something as well, just helping newcomers learn about sales, what to do, what not to do. So accelerated their performance hill, if you want to call it that, but led them to help being successful quicker. And so a lot of this all just played into it. So I think that, the bringing new clients in feels great. I still love it. Still get the same thrill I had way back when. Just like sales.
Yeah, it's always a joy to bring in that big whale, that big account. So I completely understand what you're saying. And I know you touched on Arizona. I lived out there for a while. Lived in Scottsdale. Where you used to live out there?
I spent a little time in Scottsdale. We were actually just outside of Tucson, but I managed a team in Phoenix, spent a lot of time in the Tempe office, Flagstaff, Sholo.
Yeah.
6 years in Arizona, beautiful state.
Definitely. I love my time in Arizona. And so, Ted, I want to tell our audience, why Sandler? What's so unique about Sandler?
That's a great question. So, actually, the turn of the century, I've already mentioned that. I'm not sure how much you remember about Y2K. Mm-hmm. So I was in transportation. That's where I started out in sales and did sales and operations there for nearly a decade. And with Y2K coming up, I saw how much money was being invested in technology. And I was not in technology. I was in a completely different industry. I just wasn't making what I thought I should be making. And I knew there was money out there to be made. And so technology was it for me. Started going to school at night as I was doing my normal Monday through Friday job. Got an education in that. I didn't make the Y2K thing, but I did get into technology. Got my first opportunity in the latter half of 2000. I was a technology company. They were in software licensing. Just by luck, they had hired Sandler. So they were doubling the size of their sales team. I spent a year in sales, a decade in sales. But Sandler really changed it for me. It changed the way I thought about approaching sales. It really gave me a repeatable process. It changed everything that I did in sales and thought about it. So that was 2000. I've been practicing for 20 years. been in business for 5 years as a trainer. And I'll tell you, I'm still practicing. There's still a lot that I can learn in it. But yeah, that's why Sandler. It worked for me. And when I went, actually in 2015, I was working for an organization that I thought would benefit from Sandler. So I reached out to a friend of mine. He actually was my boss at the licensing company, the technology company. Reached out to him. He was in Sandler. Wanted to hire him. That conversation didn't end up with him getting business. It ended up with me buying a Sandler license and starting off my business.
So for our audience that they don't know about Sandler, what exactly it's all about, I want you to tell us about like some of the main services that you guys offer.
Great question. Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm one of about 275, 280 around the globe. Okay. And we focus specifically in sales training, sales management, some other things that we're doing as well that we'll talk about. But in essence, we're here to help people just simply get better at sales. Like I mentioned back when I got started, they handed me the keys and told me to go out and bring some sales in. And I went and just started winging it, knocking on doors. I read the books. I paid attention to what other people were doing. I thought I had good habits. But yeah, I really got my education in 2000 and been learning since then. And so now I'm taking what I've learned and really bringing it to other people for them simply to get better.
So Ted, if I'm hearing you correctly, so in essence, what your company does is that you guys, it's like an outsourced sales organization. So like for me as a business owner, I could just come to you and say, Ted, I wanted to take control of my sales. Am I correct?
So not exactly that. I'm not going to do sales for you. However, you're the person, you do the marketing, you do the bookkeeping, you do the selling as well. Not uncommon. I've got some clients that are very much do a couple $100,000 a year on upwards to clients that are into tens of millions. But what we do help out is really make you more effective in sales. So the pains that we commonly hear about, think about the pandemic, right? It's changed businesses in a lot of ways. A year ago, I was knocking on doors, doing some networking. A lot of my clients were doing the same things face-to-face with clients. Now with the pandemic, we had to go remote. So people struggle with, how do I start new conversations? I'm used to networking. I'm used to knocking on doors. I can't do that anymore. How do I do it now? Or they've got to make phone calls. They've got to get to prospects by picking up the phone and making phone calls, and that's simply not comfortable to them. We help them get a good process. So really setting a goal, making sure that they've got the right attitude, the right mindset around what they've got to do. They figure out what the behaviors are to help them be successful, and then have the techniques to do it the right way. So we're not outsourced sales, but we make you get better at what you're doing in sales. So that's from the salespeople that are they're doing it to either the sales manager, the VP of sales, chief revenue officer, or the business owner who's leading the sales team, manage their salespeople better.
So do you go into organizations or the employees come to you?
Great question. Both. So this morning, I had a morning filled with training. 2 different sessions right here on Zoom. So people are piping in and coaching people face-to-face. Although it's on Zoom, it's not face-to-face in a room together. I start up a Zoom meeting and people come in every week, and there's reinforcement training like that. There are clients who that simply doesn't work for. They're condensed in time or in budget, and will work with only the team within an organization. It can be ongoing, but it's also boot camp style as well.
Right. And I know you, before you briefly touch on the pandemic and the situation that we're in right now. And as we know, this is the greatest pandemic of all time, right? So I want to tell our audience, how has this impacted your client base and also your company?
Wow. So probably the same thing that you've recognized a year ago, just about a year ago when this started up. I certainly had some clients that went into panic mode, right? Nobody knew what was going to happen, but they got cautious, stopped spending, stopped investing time, and really focused on just maintaining what they had. And others that just continued on. So a few months into it, as we saw, kind of what the new normal was going to be, the ones that did kind of put things on pause started picking up again. Some others really just changed their game. I mean, they got nimble very quickly. Some clients that it used to be only face-to-face, they did a lot of traveling. They went strictly to Zoom, so selling over Zoom. So they put some great practices into place. Some of the best have done exactly that. They figured out what was available to them, what they needed to do, and then made the changes. As far as me and my business, really the biggest impact was it was entirely face-to-face. I was 100% in the training center, face-to-face, shaking hands. That was what training was. And when COVID went into lockdown, when things just shut down, I went strictly to Zoom. So I remember it was 2 days of face-to-face training, was at a client in their location. The next day was in my office, my training center. And then COVID erupted. And so we went to remote, and it's been like that since.
This pandemic is going to change the world forever. It's going to change how, businesses would operate, and as you mentioned, and what you and your company did effectively is to pivot, is to move to the next strategy in serving your customer.
Well, think about it. So you mentioned that networking. It used to be face-to-face, and we were in a meeting earlier this week, and it went remote. So I would imagine many of the clients that you're working with had to change their style,
of course. Yeah. So you have, if you're not pivoting right now, I mean, obviously it's you may not survive. But Ted, I want you to walk us through your sales training process. Say you brought me on board, and how just walk us through, how you would take my employees through the process.
So typically, if that conversation is going to start up, Andre, you've either reached out to me because you felt the need for it, or I've called you. I've made a prospecting phone call, and something in what I said caught your attention. And that's where the conversation is going to start. The first thing I'm going to do is really find out, what's going on. Why would you think that you'd need this to begin with? So we really get to know what's going on in our prospects' environments. What are they doing currently? What's working? What's not working? And typically, if there's not a gap, and usually it's a gap in performance, they're not recognizing the leading indicators, but they're simply not bringing in enough business, or they're really busy bringing in business, but in order to bring that business in, they're giving away discounts, trading dollars for deals. So usually there's that pain that's there, that exists. So we really want to find out what's going on and why is that happening. So we're going to find out certainly about what's going on with you. That's really step one. If there's enough actionable reason for us to work together, certainly we're going to find the ways that we can help you out. And that's not always the case. We're not the right fit for everybody. Not everybody feels like they need us. So we're going to find those ones that really need us. There's a pain that we can fix, and then we start to work the process. And really the next step to this is we kind of take what I call a sales MRI or a sales X-ray. So there's these problems that exist. In most cases, it's because of the people, right? So you've got some comfort zones, Andre. There's probably some things that you do in selling that I don't, and vice versa, right? I've got comfort zones that I'm, things I'm comfortable with and things that I'm not. Your style is different than mine. So we get a good understanding of that. So we use a couple of assessments to really get some objective measurements of what's going on. So with the understanding of what's going on in your environment, in your business, really the pains that exist, and then the individual skills, so the behaviors, the competencies, together we put together a plan that really brings you a solution that should be actionable.
Fantastic. So Ted, I want you to, and you don't have to call any client name, but I want you to just give us a specific example of a success story where you utilize your process to great success of an organization.
Oh, so, and it's funny you say that because I've got a client that I've asked for referrals, and in one way I'm their secret ingredient. They're unique in the industry. They're investing in what we do. And so they see us as their differentiator. So the owner of the company doesn't want to introduce me to anybody in his network because he doesn't want anybody else to use me. But actually, so there's another one. A lot of companies, just by virtue of growing, they start to hire people. And typically people bring in the people that they like, they trust. They've interviewed them, something in the resume that catches their attention. They have a good interview. They like their personality. They bring them on board and add them to their team. And it's not always the right habit. So they're not using assessments or any objective measurements around whether or not that person can succeed in their industry. So there's one client that I'm thinking of that they had these habits, and it's not uncommon. A lot of companies do that same way. But they had a few managers that they had a pretty sizable team. And when we did these assessments, well, don't you know that the managers hired people that were just like them? So out of a group of about 30 people, really there were two outliers. The rest of the people, 28 out of those 30, were almost identical in their style. So may not be a problem, but they've got some blind spots. In any case, we help them get an understanding of really what they've got to do for best practices. They changed what they did. They were more successful with the people that they brought in, but built a process by which they can better bring the right people in, have a darn good understanding of people's limitations, their behaviors, their competencies. In short, Andre, they just put a better process around bringing the right people into their environment, and it ended up making them more successful.
Fantastic. And it's obvious the importance of your service. And even in my industry, I tell people all the time, we can work in terms of digital marketing. We can do all we can to send leads. But if you don't have people that are able to close them effectively, then you're not going to be successful. But that's where you and your team will come in to definitely help that organization to be that sales engine, so that they can just drive those leads and convert. So Ted, I want you. I know as a business owner and organizations, we typically would make some big mistakes that could change or the trajectory of our company. So I want you to tell our audience, tell us about 3 missteps that we should avoid in sales.
Wow. So a couple of things here. First and foremost, when it comes to sales, lots of people sell on features and benefits. So you got to stop doing that. If it's, we're locally owned, we've been in business for X amount of years, 99% customer satisfaction rating, that's not a differentiator. So if you're selling that way, stop doing that right now. I think another misstep is, so Sandler, we've got the Sandler rules, and it's simply some phrases that really demonstrate what sales is all about. And there's a couple that ring true to me. Number one is there are no bad prospects, only bad salespeople. Another one that's very similar is if your foot hurts, you're probably stepping on your own toe. So they're similar in nature in the respect that when we don't land an opportunity, if I'm going after a prospect and for whatever reason I don't land that opportunity, I've got to take a lesson learned out of that, and I can't externalize that problem. So don't externalize the problem. Look in the mirror, figure out what it is that you need to do differently, because you either said or did something that you should not have done, or you missed out on the opportunity to do or say something that could have landed the deal. So that's really the first thing is take a look at yourself, take a look in the mirror, get a lesson learned out of every loss that you have. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things I recognize. Yeah, stop selling on features and benefits.
If I could interject there. So yeah. you touched on an interesting thing. So if we're not supposed to sell on features and benefits, what should we be selling on? So it's a great question. The bottom line is, so features and benefits, it's simply a logical conversation. We're talking about data points. I'm not going to get anybody to buy anything unless they recognize that they need something. And I'm the only person that can solve the problem that they have. So people buy emotionally. We sometimes make this mistake that people buy intellectually. And that's the problem. So we're trying to sell on features and benefits. We're talking about how great we are. People aren't invested unless we can identify the specific challenge that they're dealing with, and we can solve that challenge for them. That's when they're emotionally involved. That's when you're actually selling. Interesting. And then, we always say people do business with who they know, or they buy from who they like. Talk to us about that.
So it's almost as if you were in my training this morning, which you weren't. But we're talking about bonding a rapport, and it's so important. There's so many different tools in communicating with other people, but you're talking to one of the rules. People buy from people that they like, and people like people who are like them. So one of the big things that we've got to do is we need to break the gaps around communication. There's so many different tools out there, but we've got to make people comfortable with us. Bonding a rapport is all about building trust. If somebody does not trust me, if they don't feel like I've got a good understanding of what's going on, they're never going to buy from me. They may talk to me because they're looking for information, but I may be one of several resources that they're talking to or engaging with. But yeah, you are absolutely right. People buy from people they like. People like people who are like them. So people like people who are like them. I've got to do a really good job at bonding rapport and making myself as relatable as possible to the other person.
Yeah, interesting. That's some solid points. Solid points. Ted, as a business owner, I know the importance of even without that pain, to still keep your salespeople sharp, right? I want you to tell our audience why is it critical to not only bring in a sales strategist or a sales consultancy firm when you have a problem, but also why it's important to have ongoing training.
Wow, another really good question, Andre. So we're at a time right now, what's coming up this weekend? We've got the Super Bowl, right? Tom Brady's going to be out there in the field on Sunday. So he's not going out there without coaching, practicing. It's not going to be the first time he's thrown the pass. The last time he's thrown the pass isn't going to be the last game he was in. So think about the top athletes, the high performers in anything that they do. They're constantly practicing. The challenge with business owners, people who are leading sales teams, even salespeople themselves, they may not be recognizing some of the challenges that they have. By the time they do recognize it, it may be, I don't want to say too late, but it may be built into their culture, and it may take a lot of time, effort, and frankly, either investment of money to fix or missed opportunity. So if they don't have the right practices, the right culture, it does make sense to either bring somebody in and help out with that process, or certainly get the right practices themselves. But just think about the high-performing athletes. They've got coaches. They've got people who are training with them on a regular basis. Same thing with salespeople. You got to be practicing constantly.
You're perfectly right, because I'm thinking about LeBron James. The guy spends $1 million a year on training. And,
right.
He's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and he's constantly being proactive and spending on investing on his body. And it's the same thing with sales. You have to be consistently investing in your sales team, and that's why it's so critical that someone would bring in someone like you. So Ted, tell us, what is the biggest misconception about sales?
Andre, I think the biggest misconception is that there is a natural salesperson. There are people who are born to be salespeople. That is the case. I mean, there are absolutely some people. I've got somebody I'm thinking about right now. This person just has the personality. This guy does not walk into a room without getting to know everybody. He's just that person that everybody likes immediately. And so there are business owners out there that only look for those people. I'm thinking about a prospect I was speaking to, used one of the assessments that we use, and he only would bring on board specific people. There was basically half of the people he was eliminating. So he's missing out on half the opportunities in the population, actually even more when I came to think about the types of people he was not even considering. So he'd only be looking for a very specific type of personality, and was blowing it by not bringing in people who are absolutely skilled and could be great members of his team. So I think the biggest misconception is those salespeople are born, and there's a person that makes a great type of salesperson, and that people can grow and become great salespeople.
That's an excellent answer, because I've seen where, because of training and development, individuals they move from just being timid about sales to being rock stars. So I completely get what you're saying, and that's a fantastic answer. All right. So I want you, Ted, as we're winding down, to paint a picture of your ideal client.
So I mentioned earlier, I've got clients, Andre, smaller businesses, and I've got clients that are large teams, tens of millions of dollars. That ideal client is probably somebody right in the middle. Small business owner, a small sales team, a few people. They've probably built a great business. They've got something that's good. They're doing well. But they know that they can be doing better. There's something there that just doesn't feel right. They're missing out on too many opportunities. There's inconsistency in sales. There's just something that's bothering them about sales that they know that they can improve upon. Those are the people, at a minimum, I want to talk with them. I may not be the solution that they're looking for. I may not have anything that can fix what they're looking for. But those are the people that we have a tendency to help out in huge ways.
Great. That's great. And Ted, before we go, if you could tell us one thing in your life that you need to invest more in, what would that be?
So the older I get, the more that I recognize I find value in investing in myself. So I mentioned practicing. This is year 6 in my business. I've practiced more in the past year, just outside of the day-to-day activities that I do. So I'm investing in myself. It's my own practice. And frankly, my health. I'm not getting any younger. I need to make sure that I'm staying healthy and can be around here for years to come.
Fantastic. Ted, it has been wonderful. And before we go, how can our audience reach you?
Thanks, Andre. I appreciate it. Give me a call. Cell phone number is 770-722-4081. If you're not quite there yet, you want to learn more about what we do, take a look at my website. It's Ascent, ASCENT, .Sandler, SANDLER.com. You can find out all kinds of information, some great resources out there as well.
Fantastic. Ted, thank you so much again, my friend, for stopping by today. It was a pleasure. And I know our audience, they learned a lot today. So have a wonderful day, and until we talk again.
Andre, I really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Please visit our website at yourcompanyhealth.com. Also, you can listen to us on your favorite podcast platforms. Follow us on social media at Your Company Health. And lastly, subscribe to our YouTube channel for new episodes and highlights. Until next time, stay safe.